Smart 24, driving business.
Now, the Uganda Revenue Authority has always been, of course, very ambitious and try to make very many people to see that they get into the tax bracket, but also through tax education, try to involve as many locals as possible in the reasons as to why they should be paying taxes and why they should be taxpayers in the first place. However, this has been sometimes in futile efforts, as of course data now reveals at least 5.8 million potential taxpayers are remaining outside the taxable fold, with many of these of course operating under the informal sector. Now, this year's financial target for the revenue mobilization is at least 29.3 trillion. And of course, if they are to achieve this, they would have to definitely look into who they are taxing and see if we could have a little bit more of course, the people that are supposed to be taxed in there. Hajat Hasfa, what do you think is holding back these 5.8 million potential taxpayers from paying the taxes, yet they're actually taxable?
Thank you very much. Whatever is holding them back, I think we'll best look at strategies of URA. We are into strengthening our strategic partnerships because we have strategic partnerships with a number of associations like CASITA, URA. These days when we are moving, when we are sensitizing, would want to move with them because they know the traders. They know who is where. So they help us identify them easily. It helps us to build a register and probably widen it. We look at UZIA, the small scale industries. We have MOUs with such entities. We look at UWIL for the women entrepreneurs and probably UMA, because once you touch the manufacturer, the whole chain of distribution will be known. Because if I'm a manufacturer, ideally I'm not going to utilize the items I do produce, but there's a production line, there's that line of distribution. I need to know who is a distributor, who is the agent of this particular item in every area, and whom do you supply. So once all that is known, that means one, the quality of our returns is going to improve. And as it improves, then that means what they're taking, what they're giving back equally will increase. So we have a number of initiatives that we are looking at to see that we can address how we are going to meet or how we are going to tackle the 29.3 trillion and probably increasing the tax base. Yes, we have tried because slightly, I think it's less than a year, we had about 2 million, 2.2 on our register, but now it has grown to 3.2. That's another million. So we hope to be there as we are moving forward to see how best, because once you don't widen this register, then you have a challenge. You have to keep going back to the same clients. And maybe to put more, to tighten more on the refunds we do, because we do refunds, especially in VAT. How best are we looking at them? We don't want to refund what is not meant to be refunded. So we have to basically intensify on those audits to see that whatever goes out actually is the right amount to go out. So we look at the way we do business and see how best, what can we change that will yield results in terms of numbers in the register and in terms of the amounts in revenue moving forward. Because yes, it's a big task ahead, but when we plan well and if we are focused, I guess we will be there. We will be there.
Madam Hafsa, from highly placed sources, there are allegations, I could say, of under-taxation and unprudent tax holidays or tax waivers for specific people that are holding us back from achieving our targets. And of course, a manipulation of import and export records. What have you put efforts in that line to see that we first of all don't have under taxation. We have everyone taxed fairly, depending, of course, on their income, on their business, and the size of course, whatever that we are dealing with. Are we also making efforts to see that the investors that are receiving tax waivers are not receiving them out of the whim, but they are strategically being actually positioned to see that they invest in the country and we see returns out of these investments?
Exactly, because ideally, yes, we have tax exemptions, we have tax holidays. Ideally, this is the biggest part of this functionality is in Ministry of Finance. It's resident there. Maybe there needs to be a deliberate drive to see what happens after the term ends of exemption, the holiday ends. What happens to this client? Because we need a client who can give a testimony. When I started, I got a waiver as an investor, but after the 5 or so years, I am now contributing to developing this nation by taking my fair share. So we need those testimonies. We need to follow through. It has to be intentional. Maybe we haven't been putting a lot of energy on it, but I think we need to put some more energy to see what happens after that exemption. Because ideally they are managed in Ministry of Finance, but still we can get that information and see how best we do follow up and see that somebody doesn't pack and go after the tax holiday, because that means we will have lost out. We exempted you in hope that after that you're settling in, you're starting business and all that. But when you pack after that, then probably, I mean, we are losing out as a nation. We need to put more energy on that. And you talked about manipulation of import and export documents. I would imagine maybe you would say manipulation of import documents, because those are the goods that are coming in. But ideally now we under the World Customs Organization, we are on surveillance in the whole world. At least we have our contacts wherever you need to import. And whenever something comes to us, we have correspondences that we can refer to in the different countries to confirm, actually, is this consignment coming from that place, and what do you have there? Do we have this entity there and all that? So we have where to compare, and we equally have resident officers in the different countries where people normally import from, like China, like Turkey, Thailand. We have at least resident officers that could help us verify some of these. But when you talk about under taxation, and because one, URA gives every client the privilege to self-assess yourself. Ideally, because this is your business, it gives you a leeway. Self-assess yourself through this return. And once there is an under declaration, I would call it under declaration, ideally it will lead to under taxation. Yes, that can happen, but sooner or later we get to know about it, because in business you don't operate alone. Your sale is my purchase. My purchase is your sale. So ideally, along the way, as we are doing the different return examinations, we will get you. We will get you. So we already on these two, and maybe for the investors, we need to do an intentional activity that has to happen to see how we are following through and see that we do not lose out. Where have they gone after the end?
Who qualifies for a tax waiver or a tax holiday or a tax exemption, generally speaking, like you mentioned it?
Let's look at a tax holiday or an exemption. Ideally, when we are looking at an exemption, if you're an investor, let me start with that, because it's a clear cut. It's somebody who has come to invest in this country. One, we have categories. We have a foreigner. Those people that do have a different color and you feel they are not really us, but we are part of them. So a foreigner is anybody who is not coming from the partner states of East Africa, the East African community. So once that person wants to invest here, we are looking at one who can invest 10 million US dollars in an industrial park, in a free zone.
$1 million US dollars. 10 million.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And we define sectors we feel we need help. Manufacturing, footwear, toothpaste, agro-processing.
Yeah.
So we define sectors that we feel will help in developing the nation. So once we are good there, then as you are vetted, you are given the tax holiday. Then we have another category of citizens. And when I'm talking about a citizen, it's not only a Ugandan. Anybody who comes from any partner state. I have Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi, Ethiopia, Southern Sudan. Those that are
Tanzania.
in the East African community.
Yeah.
Once somebody can at least invest 300,000 US dollars, still in the same sectors, operating in an industrial park, in a free zone, we are good to go. Because we're in an industrial park, we manage them well in an industrial park. There is nowhere we are going to look for you and we do fail. So Uganda Investment Authority keeps an eye on you. Still, in this analysis or follow-up, I think even Uganda Investment Authority needs to come in so that we form a collaboration of how best we are meant to monitor better the investors. What happens after the exemption expires? Are they working? We need testimonies. Do they go? So we need to change our strategy in one or the other. So the other citizen I'm looking at is, the other investor I'm looking at, the would-be investor, is still a citizen, but is investing up country. And my up country as a taxman is when you invest more than 50 kilometers from the radius of Kampala. Then that means you need to have about 150,000 US dollars. It's a little reduced because challenges of upcountry are not really challenges of Kampala. Because upcountry, we look at infrastructure, the roads are not in the proper shape. But with this investment, ideally we hope to see a better space as you invest. We look at connectivity, probably with electricity, wherever you're investing, water supply coming nearer, and employing the locals in your entity, because you'll need labor. And if labor is available, then we request you at least 75% of your wage bill. Let it be part of the locals. Then we will know that at least you've solved the unemployment problem. Because whatever you do, you are basically improving on the livelihood of those people just around the entity. So that is why upcountry, it's a little, the amounts are a little calmed down, because there are challenges. And we need to develop the country evenly.
Yes.
Because whoever comes to invest, the first thing is they look at Kampala. But Kampala is already somewhere. Let's look at other places that are still wanting, so that we can see how best. And by the way, investments bring even schools. You'll see a nursery school near there. You'll see a primary school. Because they know whoever is working here have children, and it is what probably is going to supply the school with students.
But it's always as if the tax waivers are always bent more towards the foreign investors or expatriates. We see so many of these, especially when Chinese come around, they're given free land. On top of that, they have a tax waiver. And we're giving off a little bit too much, especially given the fact that we have very high targets to meet, but also we're not living in the best economic environment.
Yes, true. Ideally, what you have talked about is actually true, because to somebody who is looking at it from the outside bit would say it's too much. But I think the Ministry of Finance needs to come and give, in fact, Investment Authority needs to come and give us the gymnastics. Why free land, yet one is an investor, and all that. What the parameters you look at to give half a free land, and maybe the other person doesn't have free land. So they have to clear air, because I can't exactly clear air for free land, because I am not part and parcel of how exactly they vet and see.
My argument would be, why don't we encourage the locals as well in as far as the tax waivers are concerned? Yes, you mentioned that there is a citizen who can receive,
yes,
and this is anyone from the partner states or from Uganda. Now, what the criteria seems to be a little bit more stringent
in terms of resources.
Yes, for them. And yet we would want to incentivize them, because they're the taxpayer. At the end of the day, they're going to pay you taxes anywhere else, maybe not directly, but anywhere else they're.
But at least
Uganda,
they're paying the indirect because they're
yes,
consuming.
Yes, so
that is one plus.
Yes,
because there is consumption. At the end of the day, and secondly, as the investors come and the tax holidays are there. By the way, the holidays do not stretch up to the employees. Okay. We expect pay as you earn from there. We expect that entity ideally to be
low-cost tax.
Exactly. Yeah. So we expect, it's not a blanket thing, because when HAFSA comes to work, I mean, the holiday doesn't touch me. It basically touches the proprietors of the entity, but not me. So pay as you earn ideally is expected there. Then local government expects to get the local service tax. And I mean, we expect to get something out of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk about tax compliance. This is another challenge that we are still having. Just a few months ago, reporting or informing, there was of course something that came up, that reporting or informing Uganda Revenue Authority of a non-compliant taxpayer will earn you as a whistleblower 100 million Ugandan shillings, according to the Tax Procedures Code Amended Act 2022. Is this still applicable? And if so, have people actually taken advantage of this so that we have these non-tax compliant cases reported?
Yes, in the Tax Procedures Code, informal management is there. But the stringent measures we put, or we made a classification. Because what was happening is people had made informal management a business of their own. Yet it's not supposed to be a business. But as you're doing your business and you come across something you feel we need to know and we don't know, kindly let us know. We don't expect you to wake up and come and sit at Mr. Sebali's shop. That is what we were trying to discourage, because it's what we had seen. One, we said, if you notify us or inform us of unassessed tax, there is a 5% unassessed tax. There is a 5% or a particular amount. Then, if you notify us of uncollected tax, and we do collect it, not telling us that one hasn't paid VAT of 10 million, that is not enough. Anybody probably would do it. But I want you to notify me of tax that is collectible. Once I collect it, it's only after collection that this 10% probably can come. But ideally, it's an uphill task. Yes, we talk about 100 million, but we haven't seen anybody take it. Because we made a distinction and we upped the game. So unless you wake up and you make it your business, which hasn't been the cause, so we may not have been there. Because ideally, when somebody gives you 100 million, what has the authority got in return? It should be a bounty of figures for me to part with 100 million and give it to you. And you're not willing to walk the journey with me to see that I recover that money. So at the end of the day, that's where we fail. If I can't recover what you're telling me, then it's as good as probably not telling me.
Yeah.
So we were trying to at least add some flesh on that to make it a little professional. Not everybody to become a spy, and at the end of the day we were following up on cases that don't yield. And after somebody has whistleblown here, for them they expect their percentage ASAP. Then you ask, we are picking it from which figure? We are still running around to even see whether the amounts you have told us are actually there, are actually uncollected and available. Because you could tell us a figure, but upon sitting and doing some examination, return examination, some simple audits, there is nothing.
Maybe some values could be undervalued. Maybe that could be some.
Yes, that could be, but we use all measures, because if it's an import, ideally we know where you've imported. I told you we have resident officers now in most of these countries. We can get the facts clear. So it is not that hard. So once we do not see any merit in the whistleblowing, then it may not actually yield anything for you.
The rules, or when you talk about the guidelines of maybe tax evasion, people who actually undervalue their assets, do all these apply equally to all parties, be it people who are in government, be it people who are in business, or they're actually impartial at times?
We as Uganda Revenue Authority, by the time I look at a task and probably there's some undervaluation, for me I'm reading the tin. I may not know your profile, but I'm doing a return examination and comparing the like terms together and the unlike. So by the time I come up with an assessment, I mean, it's what I have seen. So whether you're in government or not, there is a standard procedure of objecting or even appealing. But once I've done my work, it's on your side to prove that actually what I'm alleging is wrong. So I don't need to know whether you are in government or not, but it has to be that, and it has to be fair. And you who is in government, you should even support me. Because you know the cause of why I'm doing all this. I am struggling to see that I am now bridging the 3 point something.
Yes.
So you're the right person who is going to help me, because at the end of the day, whatever I'm collecting, as the cake is being distributed, part of it is probably going to your institution. So you're the right person to help me.
But we've seen many cases where government officials have taken advantage of their positions and they have evaded taxes, and probably sometimes nothing is done because they have this kind of security around them. But I don't know if this unfair treatment actually is mandated by the law.
It's not mandated by the law, because one of the core values we have is professionalism. And we have integrity. Because if we have integrity in the systems and the human capital, it does not know you at the time I am basically making an assessment. Your profile is not on my face. I will know it later when I am done with my job. So I leave it to you to prove it. However, we have recovery measures as URA. We have the direct payments when we talk to you and you agree to pay. We even have the installment payment if you feel you can't pay it at once. If you feel aggrieved, we have the objections. Kindly tell us, on this figure, this is what I agree and this is what I don't agree. And make a justification of what you don't agree. Then we see it and see whether it has merit when we look at the tax law. But if all that fails, we even created a window. We have the alternative dispute resolution. We can form a mini justifiable court of people who can, people of merit that can listen to you and see whether it is URA that is biased or that is what the law is. But all that said and done, we go to court. So I don't know whether in court you're equally going to tell them, you know, I'm in this position. We leave it to court to give us a judgment. So there are standard procedures. Yes, you might have a position. Thank you very much. But I mean, you understand the mandate of the institution. Once I don't collect, then maybe that position in government is also being at test. Because if government needs to reduce its expenditure, ideally it has to cut so that it can survive here and there. So ideally, we expect, or normally we have to synergize with government institutions to see how best we can collect. If I am paying pay as you earn on my salary equally, if you have income, then kindly do pay. If you have business income, kindly do pay, because we have all of us, we have to take our fair share on taxes so that we are there at the end of it all.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take another break, Hajat Hasfa. When we return, we look at the implementation of these strategies, especially in as far as getting to meet this target is concerned. Are we expecting any tax reforms in the next fiscal year? Are we expecting new taxes? We've always been very, very fearful of such a thing as new taxes. What is the strategy therein in implementation, of course, of revenue mobilization for the next financial year? Also, you talked about digitization, which is one of the things you're leveraging on, especially technology, to see that you have better tax administration. What are the specific new trends, new technologies probably that you're looking at in the next financial year for your revenue collection? My name is Anthony, and this is The Point. We take a quick breather. Stay with us.
Smart 24, driving business.